When they're green, they're
All right, great. So, what is this time?
32.
Okay,
So if I can, while you're getting ready, I'm just going to do a little bit of background,
sure.
just so this is a shade tree committee meeting for Newtown Township. I would make note that for anyone who happens to be listening via the YouTube, we are no longer taking public comment virtually during meetings. All public comment is made here in the building, and or if you've made public comment prior to the meeting by dropping it off at the blue drop box at the front desk or front door, and or if you made public comment by sending an email to Newtown Township, or I'm sorry, public comment at newtowntownship.org. Again, that's public comment at newtowntownship.org. And we check that up through 3 o'clock before the actual meeting. So if you've made public comment, we would have had that information, and I believe we've had none in the Dropbox, and nor do we have any in the email. And so, and tonight, currently, we have no one in the audience. So,
All right,
you don't count.
all right, so
George is here with us.
George doesn't count, right? Is that what? I'm sorry, George. Sorry, George. All right. All right, let's call to order the Shade Tree Commission meeting. It is 6:34 p.m. on March 10th, 2022. Okay, so can we let's do roll call. Rob?
Here.
Carol? Here. Tom?
Here.
John Rice is absent, but he said he'll be here next time. And then I'm here, Trish Adams. Right. All right, let's have a moment of silence, please. Okay, and let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. Our first item is consider approving the agenda. I have a motion to accept the current agenda, or do we have any proposed changes?
I favor.
You good? Okay, so we have one favor of approving. Second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, moved. All right. Likewise, item 5.1, consider approving the minutes from the February 10th, 2020 meeting. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
Aye.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay, next on the agenda are reports. Township Arborist report. Don?
Yep, we have a few things. George and I met. Also found homes for our I thought I had it. For our Arbor Day program, we found, what was it, 16 areas, I believe? Yep, potential 16 areas to be planted along the drive lane and also to replace some trees that were missing. In addition, I obtained pricing from Urban Forest Matrix, and they actually gave us a tremendous discount of $500 off the entire program for the inventory utilization program, which George has that program and proposal on his laptop. So we'll be talking with Stephen and also the board coming up next meeting.
Real quick, John, just that program, do you know, does it work with GIS if you want to integrate it?
It does.
It does?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Most
All right.
certainly. Yep. You just have to have them insert some things, but it's easily done. We've used it before.
Good.
Yep. Absolutely. So once we have that program, and again, we discussed going out tonight, but I forgot that it gets dark so the next meeting, we should be able to get some daylight time and go out and actually do a demo with the program using so you guys understand how it works. I believe that's it for now. Oh, no, we did the actual chart for the recommended planting list when homeowners call, want an application. So that's been completed. I know, Trish, you had a couple questions if you want to discuss them later on.
Okay, all right, sounds good. All right. All right, moving on. Approve permits, review violations. So we had 2 violations at one at 30 Sleepy Hollow Drive, and then at 56 Farrier. So do we have any updates on that from anyone?
I think I
Andy?
could offer some insight on both of those. 30 Sleepy Hollow, it did come in as a complaint. Sorry, Steve. Did come in as a complaint. We did a little investigative work, met with the homeowner out on site and couldn't validate that there were more than 6 trees taken down. Obviously, when we got there, the trees had already been removed. There were some stumps on site that were visible and it appeared that they were freshly cut. None of them appeared to be more than 12 inches in diameter. And I guess this kind of goes into some of the questions that we may want to discuss a little further in regard to the ordinance. The ordinance, as I read it, under subsection B, it requires the clearing and tree work permit whenever there are 6 or more trees having a breast height of 12 inches or greater that are proposed being removed. In this particular case, we couldn't validate that more than 6 were there. Part of the conversation we probably should have later on is how do we determine, or how is that cumulatively applied? So if a landowner comes in today and only clears 4 trees that are 12 inches, he would still fall under the threshold of requiring a permit. But if next month he clears 2 more, cumulatively, he would have met that number of 6. So we really probably should talk about how that is applied.
In other townships, what we do is a 1-year period. So no more within 1 year.
1 year.
Correct. Yeah.
All right, then we should probably talk. I understand Mr. Sikora is working on some modifications. We probably want to include that.
Okay.
So in regard to 30 Sleepy Hollow, I don't believe that we had any evidence that would allow us to, more firmly require that a tree work permit was required.
Okay.
So that complaint was closed. 56 Farrier, after last month and finding out about this particular property, I had nothing in my records that I could rely on with that address. So there were no building permits filed, there was nothing. So as I looked more deeply into it, I was able to find that back in November, early December, the applicant had filed a soil erosion permit. And that was to clear, or that was in order to build a pool house and a pool structure on the property. However, we didn't have any building permits at the time. They had simply filed the soil erosion application, and that particular application is reviewed by the township engineer. So there was no records within the code department that, or any plans that I could actively review. So what I did as a result of that was I reached out, I was able to find through the soil erosion application, some contact information with the property owner and also his engineer, which was Chester Valley Engineers. I made contact with them and I gave them some more background of what the tree clearing permit required and why. And the homeowner was actually going to go back. The project was somewhat put on hold. They ran into some problems with their contractor. So they wanted to put the project on hold. But we also knew that trees that had already been taken down. So he and I discussed the matter, and essentially under circumstances, I thought it was pertinent to give him a little bit of time to collect his data, come back to us with a tree clearing work permit once they had a plan in effect. So that's where that is. Okay.
It sounds like a reasonable resolution
Well, there
to
was two
me.
separate incidents with that. The
I'm sorry?
one, there was two separate incidents. The one was, he talked about the berm he removed in front of his house. And then there was the stuff that they cleared, like, for the pool, but there were two separate times that it was done. Like, one was years prior, like when he first bought the house.
Yeah.
But I think you recognized that, I guess you looked on the maps or something, or someone did, I would imagine, because he showed it, that, it shows it there and he showed it now or something. Here last
I'll be
month.
honest with you, I don't recall that.
And it would have been pre-ordinance anyways.
Right.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's what, but I didn't know if they were trying to like.
Yeah, I think somewhere we have to, in my opinion, we have to more clearly define the cumulative effects on a property when trees are cleared. So we can have more of a basis to go after and really establish a violation, and to give the homeowner, a fair shot at understanding the ordinance and how it applies to them.
Sure. I definitely think the ordinance needs some clarification in it. Sure. Do we have an update on the status of the solicitor's review? By chance?
What I can tell you is that it is on his list, and his list has gotten a lot longer since he started on this. So I will meet with him again and see if we can figure out where this is going to fit. But I know it's kind of been moved down because of a couple other things that got moved up. So.
Is there anything we can do to help?
Well, I think that I think there are a couple things that we need to probably go back and take a look at. One of those things, I think he had a short conversation with you related to the right-of-way issue.
Mhm.
I've talked with both Andy and George. I believe we can probably manage that in-house, keeping it just as it's defined in the ordinance. In other words, we have each one of those roadways. I think there's a handful that George and I've talked about that we may have to do a little bit of research on in regards to, are we right in the center, that kind of thing. But we should be able to address most of it in the township that way. And so the challenge is that we have to refer folks to this list. But what we could do is put that list on your page as well as where it is on the website, so that people know what the right of way is roughly in the front of their homes. And so it would help that piece. There's also, he's concerned about any stretching beyond heritage tree / shade tree kind of things, in that because we are a second-class township, there's not the same freedoms that are experienced under some of the other municipal type of governments. First-class township has a little bit more ability to, as I understand it from him, has a little bit more in their first-class township code that allows them to do more control of certain things than we actually do as a township of the second class. And so, that's kind of what he's been reviewing and going back and looking at to make sure that we're still legal within. It's not as simple as us just saying this is what we want. We have to still be legal within what the guidelines are set that we can be within. And so that's where his concerns were. Going back to your statement, though, I think if there was anything else that was important to you that would be in that, for example, like this suggestion of a 12-month period, we could go through and list the 10 things that we think are really important and then just ask, if he could just get those pieces addressed. If it would be enough to move us forward, knowing that we may still want to make other changes. I know originally I said, let's make them all at one time,
Mhm.
but that was with my thought that we would have done that 6 months in, not a year and a half in.
Right.
And so I think that that's how I would approach it. And if we could say, if we narrowed it down to like the 6 most important changes, and if they're all something like this, we could ask that those changes be made. And then that's a pretty simple change versus an overhauling kind of the whole piece,
Sure.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I think we could probably come up with a list of those things that we think are at least our top priorities. I mean,
Yeah.
I know right off the top of my head a couple. But so let me just ask one quick question. So his concern is about not regulating street trees that are in the right of way either?
No, that part is not a problem.
Okay.
Regulating street trees, you
Uh-huh.
can do that all day long. You have total authority in the right of way to regulate street trees. His bigger concern was when we started talking about going beyond that right of way. And we were looking, even this issue of 6 trees of caliber of 12. I
Mhm.
mean, that's a little bit of his concern in that, can we really regulate that in the backyard of someone's house? And so those are the concerns that he's been reviewing.
Uh-huh.
He thinks that heritage tree, we probably don't have an issue because if we define it as that,
Mhm.
and if we keep it broad in that way, and we're consistent, we've defined it that way and we move forward. I think we've changed it to 30 inches instead of 36, if I remember.
Yeah. for
So
heritage.
if we do those things, I think we're okay. It's when we start saying, these 10 trees you're taking out of your backyard, we can make a recommendation,
Mhm.
that if you take 10 trees down, you should plant 10 back. We understand that they need to come down, but I don't know that we have the authority, or you have the authority
Mhm.
to actually determine whether or not they can actually take those actions.
Right. So I guess I'm just going to ask we inherited this when
Sure.
we came on board, so it's not like we wrote it. So I'm just a little curious, how did it get through and get passed to begin with if there were like some of these substantive
Well,
issues?
So it was written by somebody on the EAC,
Okay.
okay? It was reviewed by someone this isn't their specialty.
Gotcha.
And we've had Rich has actually taken and reviewed it with somebody in his office that does shade tree ordinances.
Mhm.
And that's the reason why there's some pieces that we're saying, particularly with what we were wanting to change. And that's the reason why it became up. When we started, remember, we talked about saying 35 feet. If you go back 35 feet, we're going to do that. And he said, whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't think we can do that because it has to be within the right of way. And we can't arbitrarily define 35 feet as the right of way.
So when are we asking residents to stand in the middle of the street to try to measure them right away, even if we have that list of what it
I believe,
is?
and I can defer to either George or to Andy, but I know Andy says he uses this.
There's a road evaluation plan or evaluation report on our website. It basically finds by name, by the street name, alphabetically, partway width, which is the actual paved surface, and the total right of way. Now, basically what I use it for is to try my best without a survey plan, because we don't know, that's not telling us definitively that road was constructed in the very center, right? So if you have a 40-foot cartway width, and you have a 80-foot right of way, we're using the dimensions as if that road was placed directly down the center. So technically, if you go through the math, you can figure out what the right of way, where the right of way line is based off the edge of the parkway. It's a little.
Right. So,
But
but-
really, the public, I think what we probably should do is, if we're going to apply it to the link for the Shade Tree Committee on the website, is actually give an example and show how that math works.
I would rather actually that we do the math for them, because it's just, I would rather have that table include whatever it is.
And
For
we-
these
I
roads.
think we can do that. I don't think you want to do it for all the streets, but I think we can give an example of, if you have a 40-foot cartway and an 80-foot right of way, here's how the math works, and here's how you can define where your right of way line is. Or if you have a 25-foot cartway and a 50-foot right of way, we can do that. We give examples.
I just think.
Is
we
this
could-
is this an Excel sheet?
It is.
All right. I'll teach somebody how to do it and we can get taken care of.
Okay, thank you.
We can.
I
do
just
that.
think we just need to make it as simple as possible.
And I
for-
think we can. I think we can make that
Homeowners.
pretty
We're in the
simple.
center of the right of way.
Are we?
The roads are never in the center.
No, we know that, but we just need to
Water
get
mains
a
don't go
good,
down the center of the right of way.
And in most cases.
Utilities don't go down the center of the
general
right of
public
way.
is not going to argue, I don't think that they'll argue whether or not if you're a few feet here and there, when in regard to a shape,
Mhm,
you know, unless you're taking the land. That's a different story.
absolutely.
I know down in Springfield, their ordinance is basically the front of the house or like 50 feet is what they do, off the center of the road. So whatever that may be, you know, that's what they abide by.
Well, the evaluation report is a little bit more detailed than that. I mean, it actually says it have Ellis Avenue. Ellis is 40-foot wide parkway, and I don't know what it is, but I'm just for example, a 60-foot right. And that's what it
Yeah.
tells you. And then it has even more information on it other than that. But for our purposes, I think all we care about is
Right. Yeah, and I just want to make it simple for your typical homeowner to be able to figure it out, because if we want people to comply, we need to make it easy. Okay. Okay, so do we get totally off topic? So. So on, so we're good with Farrier then too, or is that,
Well,
we're
I
gonna
would say
wait on
Barry is
him?
an open item.
Yeah, so he's gonna come back once he gets a site plan and gets a situation with a
He needed
contractor.
time to reevaluate with his engineer what the overall scope of the
Okay.
project is in regard to this ordinance. So I don't. at the
Well, how many
time-
trees did he actually take down? He never said he took down how many trees he took down. Did you go out to the site and look?
Yeah, I mean, we had Zach go out, but who's our property maintenance?
Right.
inspector. But here again, after the fact, it's more and more difficult to evaluate when was this tree taken down.
Well, I mean, he admitted he had just done it. His contractor did it like
Mhm.
pre, you know.
Yeah, here again,
You know.
it's very, so what I found out more in review of the file was that when they filed their soil erosion application, which was essentially for stormwater management, Stantec, who's our township engineer, sent out an inspector just to get a visual inspection of the property to see if what the plans that they provided, if they were accurate. And when that inspector went out to just simply do that, they weren't looking at specifics yet. They noticed that some trees had been removed. And there was no quantities provided, there was.
So you never actually went out to the site?
I did not.
Oh, that was on the
No,
assumption.
no,
You
no,
went out to the
no,
site
no,
and
no,
saw.
The township engineers inspector went out to the site as a result of the soil and erosion application. So when we spoke about this last month, and I was on the phone, I didn't have a history with this property at all, because there was no application filed with my office. It was a soil and erosion application that funneled through our.
Oh, I
office.
thought someone made a complaint that he cut these
No.
trees and he had applied for
Not-
this.
not to my
And you
knowledge.
guys went out there, saw that this was started, like he started the project without the permits and
Yeah,
stuff.
from what I can tell, and after I communicated, after I found the email, so after I validated that, yes, there was a soil erosion permit, I was able to backtrack into that to the township engineer. And the emails that she conveyed that she had issued to them. And in that email, she simply referenced the fact that an inspector was out and observed that trees had been taken down and wanted to make the owner aware of that the township had an ordinance. Didn't really specify what the ordinance requires and any of that.
Right.
She basically explained to them that the township has an ordinance protecting trees. So, and at that point, it went radio silent on their end. So it wasn't until last month when I learned more about this that I was able to do a little bit more investigative work to find out what actually. So I guess to answer your question, I think that this should be an open item. I don't think we should close it. I think eventually we're going to have to regroup their civil engineer in preparing the overall plan. That's not only going to deal with the stormwater management, where it started, but also to include both the number of trees that are taken down and that may need to come down for the future work at pool house and project.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Thanks, Andy. All right, great. All right, so moving on to new business. Discuss possible action regarding Arbor Day events. So George and I spoke about this, and we do have as a requirement of our Tree City designation that we must have some sort of Arbor Day celebration, but it can be really simple and brief, and we have to have a proclamation declared. So it can, so like I said, it runs from anything from really simple and brief to an all-day event to having a really large event. So I think in years past, it's my understanding that the EAC held some pretty big events around this, but since Arbor Day is just coming up next month and we don't feel entirely prepared in order to organize something like that, my suggestion is that we do the proclamation and do a smaller event, and then maybe some of the other plantings that we do, we can also piggyback onto that. But I don't know, George, do you have other ideas? I understand you and John went out to Drexel, and maybe we can do something there.
Yeah, so thank you. So John and I did go out to Drexel Lodge. So, and that was actually as a separate concern that we were looking at. But he did identify a number of planting sites if we chose to. One of the things that dovetails very well with the timing is that Pico, as I shared last month, Pico wanted to do a tree giveaway, and they do it countywide. So the Delaware County tree giveaway they want to do this year, they asked if Newtown would be interested in hosting it. So we had proposed to them, one of the spots could be Drexel Lodge, that they could literally have the people from Delaware County come and pick their trees up. It's a good logistic place for them. They like the idea. They are going to guarantee of the 125 3-gallon, I think it is the size, of the 125 trees that they're anticipating giving out, they're going to guarantee that 50 of them are held aside for Newtown residents. And there's going to be a website that people go to and they sign up for their tree. So then that's how they'll be able to track it. And they give them information about trees as they do it and tell them, this is how you pick the right spot. And their trees are all Pico-friendly trees. So they're trees that would interfere with electric wires and things like that. So when I spoke to Pico, they're also, by the way, Pico is also, in addition to the 125 they're giving out, the 50 that they're of that 125 that they're going to guarantee go to Newtown residents, they're going to have an additional 5 trees that they're going to give to Newtown Township that we can plant wherever we would want to. So I asked the question if any volunteers from Newtown might be able to help them as they do their tree giveaway, or would they have a concern or a problem if anyone from the township or from the tree commission was present and was just there to maybe even talk to the Newtown residents or the other people and just be part of it. And they said most places don't do that, but they would be thrilled if anybody wanted to volunteer, or if anybody from the tree commission or another group just wanted to be present and be part of it. So that is a perfectly good approach to having some Arbor Day celebration, if we'd be part of something that's giving out trees to at least 50 of our own residents. So that's just a consideration. And again, in addition to the possible planning locations that John had identified, that could always be factored in, maybe a few of them that day or nearby or sometime afterwards.
You just got voluntold.
We haven't been told what day it is.
Voluntold. What
So
day is it?
Yeah, so the date is Friday, April the 29th. Yeah, Friday, April the 29th. And then I would just have you keep in mind that mid-April, we're going to be getting the 225 small bare root trees that I also talked about last time from the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. And our intention is to put them in the tree nursery, which we've prepared. And I look forward to showing the tree commission that tree nursery when the light holds up. But they're going to be available for residents and there's not anticipated to be a charge. There's not a charge for us. So we can make them available once you've established your parameters for how exactly people can plant street trees.
Okay.
So if that is around that time of Arbor Day, that could also be a consideration for you.
I'll voluntold myself to be there on the 29th. You coming, Carol, with me? Carol?
I got my own Arbor Tree celebrations on the 29th, right?
So, and one of the things also, they were interested as to whether there was a time that we would prefer that tree planting to be. It's a 4-hour window. It could be anytime between 8 and 3. So if the tree commission would like to see it at a certain time versus another, I could recommend that.
I'll take the day off and Tom's volunteered, so,
I won't take the day off, but I'll make it over.
yeah.
I'll make it. I'm scheduled to be there when you're there.
Okay, all right. So I guess we'll get with you to figure out what's the best time?
Sure. I mean, I'll recommend it to them. They're going to try their best to honor that time. They're coordinating the various counties, but
Yeah. you
they
just
said if
tell
we have a
us.
preference.
Yeah, just tell us. I mean, I can be there whenever and I think Tom sounds like he can work his
Would it be,
schedule around
I
it.
mean, it sounds to me like what I'm hearing is a morning time would be beneficial. Maybe do it 9 to 1 kind of time because, maybe that works. And then one thought I have is a couple thoughts I have is if we took and highlighted the key aspects of the ordinance that impact township residents, that we could take that information and have it kind of available, particularly for those 50 that are picking up within Newtown. So you could have that. I don't know if we'll have it in time, but I've asked George to purchase a tent. And so, if we had, I don't know if we can have it in that quick of a time. I'm putting you on the spot, George.
Well, I'll work, but we're actually looking at possibly having the pavilion be the center.
Okay,
So we could,
we'd probably be okay without the tent.
Yeah.
then. But we'll look at having maybe a table set up that you guys can do something with and do that. And then if you wanted to do something where we take those 5 trees potentially that are given, we could also do a planning right there that day
Okay.
and do a demonstration planning, maybe every hour, like just take an area. If we, again, I'll volunteer George's team to have the holes dug ahead of time, but George hates it when he's at the meeting when I do these things. It's always easier for me when I can go back and tell them afterwards, but we'll have the holes dug ahead of time and we could just show how to plant, which would make it a really good demonstration to, and say that we're going to have a demonstration 5 times throughout that period of time. I think it would make it a really nice event
Mhm.
without requiring a ton of folks to be there for that purpose. but you
Okay.
could do that.
Yeah,
And,
a very different kind of Arbor Day event.
A
but
different kind of
something that's,
Arbor Day
I
event.
think helpful to the community.
and not that we wouldn't do a tree planting sometime later in the year with 225 trees. We have lots of opportunity.
Yes.
And in addition, George, how many do we have in the
The tree nursery,
nursery right now?
the bare root trees we have, which are about 6 feet tall each. I mean, we have at least 30, maybe
So-
more.
So there's lots of opportunity today for you to do multiple events.
Mhm.
But I think that would make a nice Arbor Day event and then do some other events throughout the year,
Okay. that sounds good.
encouraging people with different ways of doing that.
Yeah, that's great.
My one question, no,
Go
sorry.
ahead, no,
Tom.
go ahead.
My one question is, the people from the township who are getting these 75 tree, 50 trees, are they all going to be showing up on Friday? Or should we
So-
do this on Saturday?
That is the day that Pico's here to hand them out.
Oh, okay,
So that would be the time frame.
all right.
And obviously, if we have a resident, I mean, we could maybe work with something that we would say any resident that can't pick it up during that time, maybe you all would volunteer to do that. And then on Saturday, we could be back out there. And for them who want to come back on Saturday, if you wanted to do that in that way, and you could make it a little bit more of a weekend kind of a approach if you wanted to. But I don't want to commit you all in that process, but it is something to think about as a
Okay.
way to,
Sure.
is the 30th one of the stream cleanup days, or is that the weekend before?
I do not know that.
The weekend before.
The weekend before is Earth Day.
Yeah,
22nd is Earth Day.
yeah, which is. a
I think
Friday.
that's when the cleanup
Yeah.
is, but we'll verify that, but we can look at doing something along those lines.
Okay, yeah, well, count me in.
So my question was, should we hand out literature on that day too?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking is
You
that
know.
you could have literature on how to plant the tree, but also, I think Pico is going to provide some of that if I'm not mistaken. But you could also do something, particularly for the 50 residents of Newtown, make sure that we are communicating to them about our tree ordinance, so that it's, because that's still something that we're finding is there's a lot of people that don't even know we still have it. So and the 50 is not going to be the whole town, obviously, but every time you get a chance to do that, you increase the number of folks that know about it.
Sure. And maybe include why trees are important, why we have the ordinance.
Yep.
Just a few bullets,
Sure.
so it's not so long they throw it away.
Exactly. Yeah, that would be good. And then how to care for them and water them and,
Pico will probably provide that. right?
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
probably.
And I'll find out exactly what it is that Pico is going to be sharing so
Okay.
that we can either be complimentary or finish out what they don't have.
Okay. And then do we know when their site goes live for folks to sign up?
Yes, so I believe it's March 21st. I will double check that. And again, we will post that on our website and put it out on
Okay.
social media. They gave me the link, but right now it's an inactive link. I mean, it'll tell you if you sign up, they'll send you an email saying when it goes live that you go back. But they actually said, don't guarantee that that's going to work. It's technology. The key is going to be making sure that we tell people March the 21st at midnight or whatever it is, and
Mhm.
that's when it goes live for them.
Okay.
It's first come, first serve, although they are going to screen for Newtown residents as best they're able to get us to
Okay.
50.
So I think a couple thoughts that I have would be that one of the things that you might want to work on are a couple of, because March 21st is literally a week and a half away. It feels like it's not quite that short, but it is just about. And so might be that we want to go ahead and come up with 3 different but similar types of postings that we can put on social media over the next week so that we kind of get that out multiple times. Steve can get it up on the social media, but also up on Facebook for us. Or not Facebook, that is social media, but the website, I'm sorry. We'll get it up on the website, kind of doing that. And then if we take that, we'll go ahead and put it in we'll put it in our lobby so that people see it. We'll get it up on the board. But if you're set on that and we could get the date and the time, and we can try to get that knocked out tomorrow, hopefully, with Pico to get a confirmation, maybe if we can Monday night, we'll go ahead with the board of supervisors. And because they won't meet again until after the 21st, but we'll announce it then as well, that this is what you're wanting to do.
Okay.
Okay. Hopefully between now and Monday, we could formalize the time with Pico.
Mhm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, sure
Okay.
does. All right. Well, that sounds great. It sounds like we have a lot of good things coming up, and yeah. All right. That sounds awesome. Yeah. All right. Thank you, George. Appreciate
Before, I
it.
know you need to go, and and we've kept you. Do you have anything else you want to share? I know we talked about several things. Have we covered everything? Or does John have the rest of the information?
I mean, John's going to be able to cover it for sure. He talked about the tree inventory program. We've got the tree planting permit and process, which I think he'll talk a little more about maybe, in particular with planting trees as street trees in the right of way, and how to give people permission to do that, and what your method will be for reviewing that and seeing if that's appropriate or not. The other thing is going to be, and I think Steve can handle this one for sure, would be the verification of the use of trees that the township has in its tree nursery. Not only the ones that are there right now, but the ones we will be getting, just verifying that they are acceptable to use as long as they're under the jurisdiction of the tree commission. So as street trees, or if there's if there's another thing that would come under your jurisdiction, that's acceptable for those trees to go to that purpose.
Okay.
I think that would be it. Unless you have any questions for me. Yeah.
Thank you, George.
Great.
Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Good night, George.
You can have off tomorrow too.
Right, fantastic. All right, so I think this was a really good segue into the next agenda item, which is outreach ideas and suggestions. So as you all know, that John Rice spends half his time in Arizona, and so sometimes it's difficult for him to get engaged in what we're doing. So I reached out to him to see if he would be willing to maybe help us out with some of our be the outreach point of contact, because he could write up maybe some of the handouts that like you were just talking about, or some of the social media posts or articles. Because now, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought I saw an email. I tried to find it again and I didn't see it. Maybe, I don't know if it was from
We need an
Stephen or
article
not.
by the 15th.
It's today,
The 10th.
5 days.
5 days.
Oh my gosh. All right, well, I will let him know. So, but
Is that
he-
right? 15th? Yep.
The 15th, okay. And then which magazine is this, or which
So this will
newsletter?
be, if you, I think within about the last 3 weeks, you've received something from Newtown Township in your mailbox
Mhm.
that has a green border across the top that says Newtown. That'll be what it's in. Okay, we used to, if you'll recall, we used to have articles inside In Community. In Community is no longer doing that for the township or the school district. So we're looking for another approach on that side. We don't have an answer yet there, but we are still working on that. But we are good and going with our newsletter. There will be some ads in it. There'll be 2 pages of ads, front and I think the front cover, behind the front cover, behind the back cover, if I remember right. But then the inside is really all of our material. And so not a problem. You know, the thing is that I will say it's limited to 8 pages. Always get it wrong, but I think it's 8 pages. So, you know, we can't
So are you
do,
talking, so I was just thinking maybe just like a short not even a half a
That's
page kind of
perfect.
thing?
Between a quarter and a half a page.
All right,
We'll split that up between the different groups, get information out. It'd be ideal to have something out regularly.
all
The
right.
other thing that I've been talking to groups about is that, and I just mentioned it here a couple minutes ago, we want to do 3 postings a week to social media from on the township piece. But it would be helpful for groups like this one, if maybe you do 2 a month or
Mhm.
1 a month, depending on how active you are. And if we add that with all the different groups that are doing things, it'll be a variety of posts, and it won't be us putting the same thing out every time, but it'll be, something about shade trees, something about trails, something about whatever. And that would be the idea. And if we do more than 3 a week, that's great.
Mhm.
But what we know is if we're not posting at least 3 times a week, people aren't looking at your page. You got to keep it current. And so if we want to keep it current, we need different groups to do that, to keep the material flowing in.
So, and that's what, and I think that's where John can maybe help out with
Sure.
that. So who would be the best person? Because I'm sure he's going to have questions. Who would be oh, right.
Steve,
All right.
when in doubt, I go to Steve.
All right.
At least
excellent.
for now.
All right, fantastic. All right, so let's see, by the 15th. And then, so he would send that to Steve, right?
Yeah, just send it to Steve right now. We're going to probably have somebody in addition to that in a few
Mhm.
weeks. We're going to do some additional training. Heather is your support person, and
Mhm.
eventually we'll have Heather trained on being able to do Facebook posts and do all that. Once we get Heather trained, then we'll transfer. But right now, everything needs to go to Steve. Newsletter is Steve, that's his role.
Okay, all right, fantastic. All right, great. I mean, how do the rest of the commission feel about John taking over, sort of being the outreach point of contact for us? Is that good?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Sure.
Dom's like, yeah, sure. why not?
What about you?
I'm not on
You
site.
all
Fine with
right?
me.
Well, I figure since we're more, we're here more often, and we're doing some of the plantings more often and stuff like, although he'll be back in mid-April, I think, so he might be able to help out also with Arbor Day as well. So, because he definitely said he wanted to get engaged in that as well. So,
And my guess is if you say you need some volunteers, I think you would get volunteers from the EAC,
mhm,
and some other
yes.
groups would want to help you because they want to be very supportive.
Sure. And then maybe next year we can do something even more organized and maybe reach out to more volunteers from the community so that we can get the word out a
Sure.
little better as well. Right. Do you guys have any other ideas on what we might want to do for outreach? Because I mean, my biggest problem is that I'm just concerned that people don't know about the ordinance, and then you run into folks that, bump up against it unknowingly.
You could always put a big sign
Did you know?
out. Did you know the police is hiring?
Well,
Did you know there's a shade tree committee? There is a shade tree ordinance in the township. 3 trucks come through this down Westchester Pike every single day.
Well, let me ask you guys as professionals, I mean, would it make sense in order to put a small flyer or something? I don't know, because it seems like paper is passé anymore, but is there a way to reach out to the industries that are local, that most commonly work in this area? I mean, what's the best,
Let's put a banner on the sides of the trucks.
what's the
Well,
best
I
way to
would
reach
think if you
out?
came up with this sheet that we're talking about, that,
Mhm.
here are the top 5 things or 6 things that you need to know from the shade tree ordinance, that we would hand out at this event. If you sent that same thing to each one of our landscaping companies that have come in to the township,
Mhm.
we could do that. We could help you with that part of it. If you had that sheet, these are things you need to know.
Mhm.
And,
Like I just got my business registration license.
yep,
contractors, tree contractors could get it with their registration as they register,
Yep.
and the
Mhm.
ones that actually register.
Yes.
Get it.
I mean, look, we all know there's some that don't. And, and we try to catch those, but, if, for those that are playing by the rules, we can get that information. And I think we require an email address, so we could even email it to everyone as an option once you put it together, and we could use that. So
Okay,
I think there's some ways that we could do that.
okay.
And,
Is it something too, as a member of the Shade Tree Commission, I just had a stack of them with me, because I know on my street, there's always tree work getting done, just stop and hey,
Yep.
on behalf of the, Newtown
yep,
Square.
absolutely.
There you go.
We could have that almost like if you did it on like a half sheet of paper, we could make it available like that. We've done some stuff on cardstock. Steve did a really nice job for if you were involved in the walk last Sunday. There was a postcard they handed out. That was done in-house. We did that. So if you want to,
The same thing, bullets, just bullets.
just bullets, so that, the key is you're not asking somebody to read the whole ordinance by handing it to them, but you're saying, here's the things that you need to know.
Right.
These are things that we're watching.
The overview.
Uh,
The overview of the.
The
whole
overview. Yep.
ordinance.
Okay. Do you want to work?
Behind the mouth there. I'll get it.
Do you want to work with John Rice on that, since you probably know what are the most important things to convey?
Mhm.
That would be great. Excellent. Great. Oh, I voluntold you. Sorry.
Okay.
I voluntold John too.
At least one of them, though.
All right, excellent. All right, any other ideas, suggestions?
Is it one other thing, if we do this, something I have to submit to you guys first, township, to say that, is it okay, if it's approved by you?
Yeah, I mean, I think you would want to send it by us just to kind of review it, but the second part is we'll probably produce it for you.
Okay, great.
Like,
Mhm.
I don't expect you to go out and figure out where you're going to get a copy or to produce this. So
Mhm.
we'll do that. And particularly for something like this, if you want to, do it color, we'll make it color, however you want to do that.
All right,
Okay, I'll work on that.
all right, excellent, thanks.
Mhm.
All right, so I had asked to put this on the agenda. The next one is 8.3 budget needs. So this was something, Steve, that you had mentioned. And I don't know, is that something we still need to discuss and figure out?
Yeah,
still?
so I think that obviously the budget for 2022 is already set.
Right.
We passed that budget in December. But you ought to keep in the background of your mind, as we're going into 2023, we're going to start that process, believe it or not, in 2 months.
Right.
We're going to start doing the budgeting. We started in May and we work our way through the end of the year, doing budgeting pieces, different pieces. I know John just mentioned the program. George and I have looked at the budget. We think there's money in the budget to do that. And so we're going, if you all wanting to do that, I think that we would want just a recommendation from you to ask the board Monday night for approval to go ahead and purchase. I think it was it? It was, plus 800.
Plus $500.
Oh, that's right. I'm thinking something different. Sorry. I have another app in my head that I know we also were getting approval on Monday night. That's 3,800, but this was 27. So, and then but it's just 27 this year and then 500 each year after, right? Every 2 years. So this would be something that, I think is a good investment for you all to get started with. I do think this requires a tablet. Yeah. So I know we have some here. We may need to get another one, but we can figure that out. But
Okay.
if we get the board to approve that as one of the expenses that you need, George and I have reviewed it from a financial standpoint. We think there's money there today. Go ahead and do that.
Okay. And then, so do we have, so we're planting a lot of trees. And so what I learned, at least in our tree tender course that y'all sent us to, that wanted us to attend, is that, it takes, there's 2 years of care for a tree you put in. And so that's, and if we're putting in 200 trees now, we've got a bunch of other trees that we have to put in, to meet the MS4.
Yep.
So what are the plans from the township to care for those trees?
So here's, I think from our perspective, obviously caring for trees on township property is, we would love for some volunteers to help, but our staff knows that that's probably predominantly our responsibility. And where we can, we've done those gator bags that you've seen. And we would still want to use those as much as possible. And I mean, that just helps us so that we're not having to be out there every day kind of thing.
We did talk about, drought conditions. Obviously, they have a water tank. If we get into those dry conditions, he can facilitate having, staff go out there. But again, we rely on Mother Nature, and usually it works in our favor, especially in the springtime. So.
Okay. And then, so would we need to, like, as part of Shade Tree's budget, to have maybe extra gators or some of the?
I think we would want to do that for trees that we're planting on township property.
Right.
Potentially some trees that we're planting along major thoroughfares. But I think that when we're asking people to plant trees in front of their homes,
They need to
I
take
think
care
we
of it.
want, I think part of the expectation should be that their nurturing of that tree is part of their responsibility,
Sure.
and, but I think it's, incumbent upon us to then help train them of what that looks like,
Right.
Yes, you need to water it so many times, but no, you don't want to have a sprinkler running on it all day, every day, I mean, that would be,
Right.
a problem as well. So like, what does that look like? And I think part of our responsibility is to do education and in some way have some way of kind of checking up and following through, particularly if we're going to be planting 1,000 trees over the next 5 years. That's a lot. And for us to be successful in doing that, I'm hoping that at least half of those trees are in front of people's homes.
Right.
And not all on township property, just because I don't think we can maintain that many.
Right.
It's starting out that small, I mean, that's just realistically of where we're going to be.
I don't think you'll get the ecological bang for the buck if you do that either.
Yeah.
So I guess that leads to the question about the permit. So would we have some sort of commitment in the permit application for planting of street trees for the care, that long-term care, or would we just provide literature so that they understand what they're getting into and what the commitment is? Right.
Unlike that, I really don't like.
I could see doing something. I honestly don't remember what the gator bags cost, about $20 a piece or something. So one thought I had would be that, with these 200 trees that we have, maybe what we would do is invest in gator bags, not necessarily 200 of them, but we would invest in some gator bags that when the people got the tree, they actually paid for the gator bag. And so therefore, we're helping move them into a place where they're where they're getting. When out
Right.
some of the trees that we have in the nursery, we actually will sell because we paid money
Mhm.
for those. These other trees were not. But instead of, because I do think John's right. I think when you just give away, there's not the same desire to make sure you maintain and take care of. If you make an investment, you're more likely to take care of it.
You have
And so
more of
this
an
is
incentive.
more an incentive. And so this is a way to do that. I think you can do it some creative ways to put a little bit with it to make it make sense, but also really helps it be successful. And particularly if we're doing a tree that we are giving, then I do think it's appropriate to have this and say, this is the commitment you're making
Mhm.
to take care of it.
Well, and especially if we're using those trees to count towards our state responsibility.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm just concerned about some accountability there because it doesn't make sense to give away or plant 1,000 trees and they die
die.
in 3 years. So that's just, so
I
how,
know-
what's the accounting on
Yeah,
that?
I mean, there is some expectation, obviously, that we're
Right.
following up to make sure they survive.
Right.
The other piece that I would say is, I know that right now there's a neighborhood that really wants to do this as a neighborhood.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, based on what the conversation I'm having, and you may have had the conversation with the same person I've had, but there's a real desire to, I think they're hoping to plant 80 trees in their neighborhood
Okay.
as street trees. And so this may be a perfect opportunity to use that as a pilot project,
Like a demonstration.
which to demonstrate
project,
how a neighborhood can make a difference.
yeah. Oh, that'd be great.
And, so this may be something that you all would get very involved in. I've said they should come before you for approval anyhow, because it is street trees. But this may be something that we can say, yes. And we're asking for them to make the commitment of, when you get the tree, you get this and this, but it costs you $25, $30.
Mhm.
And in doing so, this is what you get for it,
Gotcha.
to help you be successful in doing that.
Is this a new neighborhood or an existing?
No, it's an existing neighborhood. It's a neighborhood that's, I would say it's probably was built in the 60s. So,
Is the Edgemont development on the east side of Westchester Pike? That's our township right there on the new development.
as you're going towards Westchester?
Yeah, but it's on the east side. It's coming back this way. That development is,
Is it the one with the
Yeah.
golf course?
No, that's Edgemont.
that's Edgemont. Okay, so
No,
that
when
place is
you get to the Subaru dealer,
right. It's
anything on that side, you're out of town.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, the challenge is, I think it's still considered Newtown Square.
right.
Yeah, and so it's part of our mailing address, but it's
Right.
not our township.
That place is barren. It's a shame.
Yeah, it is barren in
It is a
comparison, so. But this is a neighborhood that if you drive the neighborhood, and I don't want to say anything yet, because I know they're just kind of getting started. But this is a neighborhood that if you drive the neighborhood, it makes perfect sense that they were to do a shade tree project, because most of these houses don't have a tree in the front yard.
Hmm.
And if you got 3/4 of the houses to plant a tree in the front yard, even if it was something small and they were to all take care of it, think about what that would look like 25 years from now. And, it would be huge,
Mhm.
hugely impact the quality of water coming off that street. And it would make a big difference.
Great. Well,
I like
that's
it.
exciting. That sounds fantastic. All right, great.
One thing I was going to suggest is maybe you call it a tree adoption program with a contract
Mhm.
and had set long-term goals for the viability of that tree when they adopt the tree. So, and then have it, and then as those adoption contracts come in, that's saved with the file. And then you have a 5-year review of the condition of that tree, or a 10-year review, or a 15, and have people buy into that long-term effect of planting that one tree.
What's the reward for doing it?
Pardon me?
What's their reward?
Shade.
Shade?
I mean, the environment, I guess, is the
Yeah.
reward, the benefit to the environment. I mean, and more, I mean, trying to make it more of a buy-in to the individual at the importance of that tree. It's like adopting a child. You don't
Right.
want to just adopt a child, let it sit in the corner. You want to have that tree, you want to adopt that tree, you want to plant it, you want to nurture it, you want to take care of it, all for a common goal, long-term common goal.
I
So
love
just
that.
an idea.
But do we give them, I think it's a great idea, but do we
Yeah.
give them recognition in like the Township magazine or something? Say, hey, you know,
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's lots of ways to go. I think your creativity in this and what you get put together as you put programs together, we'll put it in the newsletter. We'll make a big deal about it.
Yeah.
And, you know, if we get this neighborhood to do it and it's successful and you guys work through the pilot on this, you could take that and we could do that.
Sure.
We could pick a neighborhood every year that we were going to target long-term,
Right.
you know, in the process.
I like that.
Okay.
That's a great idea, Andy. That's wonderful.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. Right. Yeah, I like that. It's way more friendly than being regulatory.
Yeah.
That's my mindset. Sorry.
So I'm going to jump back to your budget
Yes.
thing, just to make sure we
Yes.
stay kind of, I think tonight, if you all are wanting to move forward with this program, I think it would be beneficial for you to make a motion
Okay,
to ask the board for approval to purchase this particular program for, my understanding is the program would be used to track all new trees that we plant in the township, as well as and going back and do existing trees, primarily on township property, but would also be, could be used for doing all the shade trees. Yeah. So and how I would tie that, just so you know, I know in your ordinance that you guys, under your piece, it actually talks about the fact
yeah, we have to.
that's a requirement. And so this would be
Right.
allowing you to do that.
And so that's where, so we would have an iPad that when we were out and about that
Sure.
we could do that with. All right,
Yep.
fantastic. Okay. So, so what's the name of the program, John? Is it the tree inventory program? And an iPad? Right, so, does anybody want to make the motion or do you want me to make the motion?
Make a
All right.
motion.
All right, so I'll make a motion to ask the Board of Supervisors to purchase the Urban Forestry Matrix Tree Inventory software and iPad to help us meet our requirements under the shade tree ordinance to require us to inventory public trees and shade trees. Is that good?
In favor. Aye.
You got a second?
I would just go back, it was
Anything else?
$2,700 for the program.
Oh.
Yeah.
And spend
Plus the iPad.
$2,700 plus 500 every 2 years thereafter.
With the tablet.
And the iPad.
Yeah, but that, if you. you're not putting
I don't know
money
what the
in.
cost is. Okay,
I think we probably have one
okay,
that we can just,
okay.
we'll,
If necessary.
Huh?
If we say, and purchase a new iPad if necessary.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay,
I think really it's as simple as that. All I need to do is purchase like a tough cover so that while you're out, if you drop it or whatever, it's a little bit protected, but
okay,
we have one that I think nobody's using right now. So.
okay. So do you want me to read the motion again or?
No, I think your
We
motion's
got it?
good
All
and
right.
you made it,
All
right?
right, and so, yeah,
Yeah.
and Tom seconded it.
No, I first.
Oh, you first, oh, and then Rob
Rob second.
seconded.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. It passed unanimously. Yay. All right. All right. Okay, so I think we can close out budget. We good?
I think you actually did both A3 and A4 both in that.
Oh, excellent.
The
All
tree
right.
adoption program.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't
Oh,
cover
yeah.
8.4.
Well, 8.4 is discussion of the possible action regarding the tree inventory program. So we did that
And process.
and the process. But what we can talk about though is the application. So, John, did you want to talk about the proposed draft application that you and George worked on?
I designed just a brief application process for the residents. And I want to put some housekeeping items on there such as, places you can't plant, within 25 feet of a traffic signal, stop sign, fire hydrant, handicap zone, or a stop sign, or a crosswalk. So they're in there so the homeowners can actually read through this, understand their obligations regarding calling 811, which is the PA1 call system for underground utilities. And then on the second page, we actually ask for the information. So we're asking for the number of trees they want to plant, the locations, the species, and the size, and then site information, pictures of the site, pictures of the proposed areas to be planted, and then obviously an area for me to go out or whoever go out and inspect the area and make sure it is viable for planting.
All right. Yeah, I looked at it and I just had a couple, I don't even remember what my comments were.
Your comments were regarding the watering.
Yes.
Yep. Which obviously we can't make them water, but we'll promote it through that little,
We do the
brochure.
handout,
Give
it's
handout,
just like,
yep.
here's some best practices and.
correct. And I'm not sure who the application will go to. I put George on there just for the sampling.
Mhm.
He was probably like, what is this? And now, but so we'll find out who that goes into and then, I can do the inspection or whoever.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions?
Mhm.
All right. Okay, so let's move on to 8.5 Stony Knoll, the discussion of the final land development plan.
So I'm going to jump in just to get you started and Andy can probably fill in more, but this originally was meant to be a 27 house subdivision that you actually reviewed before. And so you probably go, I thought we already did this in the preliminary, and it was done in the preliminary. However, they've come back now and they've decided to do, I think it's 13 houses, is that right, Andy? And so they've come back and decided to only do 13 houses. I think the land or the lots are much larger. I think he said he's doing like 2 to 3 acre lots, if I recall right. And instead of having 2 road entrances, there's 1 now in and out. It's going to have a very different feel. My anticipation is the homes are going to be larger yet. Just so you understand, I just wanted to make sure everybody kind of understood that, yes, you did review and John did a review for you before, but this is we're treating this kind of like a whole new plan because it's totally different than what you originally saw.
And if I can add, I do think that your professional arborist, John, is going to do the bulk of the review in accordance with the ordinance. And this particular plot of land is really a field. There's not, the existing trees on the property border the property and actually go down on I guess that would be the south side in Echo Valley. That's where you're going to see most of the tree removal because generally it's a field. But your ordinance requires those trees that are going to be removed to be identified and then replaced. And then also you'll have the street tree concept of the ordinance. that'll have to be reviewed, and here again, John will do that
Yep.
and submit that letter, his review letter too. I believe you've done that in the past for other
Correct.
projects,
Absolutely. Mhm.
like Port, I believe you did the Porsche project,
Mhm.
did you not?
I
And
think I
maybe
did.
even parts of the Ellis Preserve.
Ellis Preserve,
So,
yep.
so when those review letters are completed by John, obviously, I think that he'll want to share them and review them with you. And then that letter will be submitted as part of the packet that goes to the planning commission. And then that's reviewed in its entirety, along with the stormwater review from the township engineer, the fire services review from the fire marshal. I do a review of the zoning. And that's collectively discussed at the planning commission.
Okay. So it does look like though there's a strip of trees though that are kind of bisecting the property. It looks like the last lot before the cul-de-sac itself.
I think that this particular plan shows the street trees.
Well, I know, but but on the
Did you go to the
other,
existing features plan, Steve, or?
I was
the
just
raw
looking at
grading
it
plan?
on Google Earth. or Google.
Yeah, if you could find the grading plan, that may be more clearly.
I
there.
guess so. My question is do we have any requirements then to have them avoid trees? I mean, it seems like it's, okay, here are the trees we're gonna take out and we're just gonna replace them. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of energy spent on protecting the existing trees that are on site that are mature. Because it sounds like that there are quite a few. And I mean, if we do get an amendment to our ordinance that has the heritage trees at 30 inches, and I guess I'm assuming that this is DBH, it says there could be 9, that are heritage trees that they want to take down. And so, and of course, our ordinance wants to protect those. So would we not, is that something would be in your report, John, to avoid those trees and some of those larger DBH ones? Because it seems to me that just with a shifting of some of these houses just a little bit, or swapping of the driveways, you could easily avoid.
That would be a recommendation that I can make. However, when they come in front of you to present their plan, that will be the time where you ask them to either move buildings or driveways or whatever it might be in order to preserve those select species.
Okay.
It's just a recommendation, right? That we don't have any authority to
No,
make.
we
We do not have
do.
authority now. It's a recommendation.
We have a little bit to say that, but at least we can make a strong recommendation about it to protect them, because that's what we're supposed to do.
I think that ideally, you'll make a strong recommendation back. In this case, I believe this is going to the planning commission in March.
March 29th.
Mhm.
So you won't even meet again prior to.
Right.
To that, but you'll meet prior to the board meeting and reviewing this plan. And so you'll be at least able to present to the board of supervisors. But knowing what we're having the conversation now, as John does his review, he can take that into account. If that's your recommendation,
Mhm.
that, anywhere where there's a tree that would be 30 DBH or greater, that we would look to figure out a way to save those trees where possible. And
Yeah, I mean,
Protect it as best as possible.
yeah, because they're proposing to have to plant 207 new trees. So and 54 are because of the impacts to those larger trees. So it would behoove them, because it would be cheaper for them, I would think, in order to shift things around to avoid than it would be to do that.
Yeah,
It
they-
can be.
You have to remember something though. A lot of times, obviously they know the ordinance. They know what it costs to buy a new
Mhm.
tree and remove a tree.
Sure.
But a lot of times their cut, fill, stormwater management comes into play where they have no option other than to condemn that tree.
Mhm.
It looks like all the storm.
Yeah, exactly.
It's on the south side.
Yeah, there's-
And that supersedes trees for sure. So.
I think we just try and identify 1 or 2 or 3 that
What are
we
you talking about,
possibly
the
see without a
pines
big
now?
inconvenience to them.
Our due diligence.
No. It's, hold on.
And they do have a lot of trees to replace, that's for sure.
Yeah, and so my question is, where are those gonna go? Because it says in the notes that they're going to discuss it with the township.
And that'll be part of my review is we need some sort of plan prior to discussing with the township.
I mean, is this gonna be some sort of homeowners association where maybe if there are some on-site trees planted there on the private property? That's always sketchy though, because they can always just take them out.
I think we can do a lot through plan notes on a landscaping plan. I mean, I think that that's really where the rubber's going to hit the road as far as planning and a review of this particular project. And I think that if John has any specific notes he wants to add to that plan that can make them, the HOA or the community, more responsible for the care of these trees. Obviously, the recommendation of relocating, but I agree with John that that's really going to be predicated on where they can put their stormwater management, where it's most desirable for them to handle it and also to protect the surrounding properties as well. So I think we can do a lot of that through plan notes and John's review. The other thing that I'm a little bit concerned with is I think this is the first time that we're all going to be involved in managing this ordinance throughout the land development process, because that is specific, has a specific timeline of 90 days. So the township has to act on their particular plan within 90 days from the date of the application. So that's why getting you these plans, having you look at them early is going to be the most beneficial for us to push that plan, not necessarily push it, because if we can legitimately deny the plan, then the township has that right to do so. But otherwise, if they won't give us an extension of time, we're limited to that 90-day time
I
clock.
understand that. So that's why I think it would be super important, like when these plans are sent to us, if we have some narrative that accompanies it, that at least gives us a project description and maybe a brief description of what the current site conditions are, just so that we have an idea when we're reviewing it, we have a better sense of what we're reviewing. Because I mean, flipping through, it was like 30 pages of 27 pages, you know, and then I'm like, oh, okay, here it is. And here's where here's the page I need to be paying attention to. So, and I just didn't, and I didn't have the background so much that this was that same development that we didn't look at it really all that closely. So, I mean, I think that would just help us in our review, and because my goal would be is to turn around my review and get that to you as quickly as possible. So what would be the procedure of that? Because I mean, clearly we only meet monthly. You have these timelines. So would we each review it and then send our comments to John? Interim?
I mean, I think the committee, it's up to you, but I mean, I think you have a professional here that is really knowledgeable in performing those reviews. I mean, he's knowledgeable in the ordinance, he's knowledgeable in land development reviews. I mean, my opinion is I think he can provide that service for you, to you, and then submit that in a more timely fashion.
Just remember, you guys can't be talking among yourselves.
And
then sending it to me.
No, we know that.
Big issue.
I
know that.
I think the best way would be that we'll send it to you so that you have it, but we'll also send it to John at the same time. John can write up his initial review, send it to you prior to the meeting that you have. You will have basically typically this meeting to review it, his letter, and then send it back on, make your recommendation to, and we're having this debate, whether it goes to the planning commission first or whether it goes to the board of supervisors, because you don't report to the planning commission, you report to the board of supervisors. And I've got the same challenge with the EAC and with the Trails Committee,
Mhm.
all doing the same, everybody's reviewing. And so,
Well, that's why I was confused when I'm like, what exactly am I supposed to do with this? So
well,
I think,
you're reviewing, I think this, you have the advantage as a group, because we have John
right,
on your, as a kind of here as the arborist for the township. He's going to review this on behalf of that.
okay,
And so he's going to do that, and he's going to make those recommendations. When he sends that, and if you review that against what you see on the plan, and like your example that you said, I think there's some trees here that ought to be protected. That gives John a chance to look at that,
mhm,
decide how that could be done. Does it make sense? Are they putting those in the middle of where stormwater is, and that's why they need to take them out? Or are they in a spot where, could they literally do something that made a difference? And if they can, one of the things I have to say about this particular developer, most of the times when we've suggested things, he's been pretty open
mhm.
to actually trying to do it if he can. So if moving a driveway does make a difference to save some of these trees, it may be very simple. If it's the stormwater area, then, it may not be an option.
Yeah, it doesn't appear so on the plan.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. Well, that sounds good. Yeah, I just think it would be helpful. It's just like, because I wasn't sure where in the process, if John had reviewed it or if we were getting it all concurrently. And I think there was still a level of confusion by everybody, like, what are we?
Yeah,
supposed
so
to do
you
with
will
this?
get it concurrently, because when it
Okay.
comes in, it's being
Good to
sent
know.
to you. It's being sent to the different third parties who are doing
Mm-hmm.
work on our behalf. The engineer, our solicitor, John, everybody's getting this document.
Right.
And so when everybody gets the document, they get a chance to review it. Hopefully we get it back to you in time before we get back before the board, for sure. But,
Mhm.
as Andy says, one of the challenges we have is we've now got 4 different groups doing a review on these plans.
Mhm.
And the code only gives us 90 days to turn all this around. And so we have to really trust, particularly on the tree side, we have to trust John,
Oh, yeah.
and then hopefully you'll have a chance to get feedback in the process. Yes.
We're gonna defer to John.
Maybe to help you get through the plan more easily, or the more you review these plans. But typically on the cover sheet, it'll provide a legend. And I think your focus should be primarily on the grading and utilities plan, and then ultimately a landscape.
Mhm.
And that way, between those 2 plans, you'll be able to see what the existing post conditions are, and then how they're replanted. So there's probably about 2 or 3. So bring your focus will need to be
Mhm.
out of that third.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly,
I have an understanding.
yeah, well, I do too. I've reviewed these for a different purpose, but I'm not totally ignorant about it.
No, I know. We're gonna- I think our goals are aligned with John's, and
Yeah,
he's gonna do the
it's
site
just-
inspection. And
Yeah, it just, to me, it just, when I read it and I read the notes, and it just seemed, and it didn't seem like there were any, I mean, it's a field. And there's only a handful of trees that are within that field where it's to be developed that look like, could be protected to some degree. I don't see why they all have to come out. So that's, I guess, what I was confused about. It's like, well, where?
And here's what I would tell you. I think that's a
that's what
great
he's gonna do.
observation. And I think that as part of your recommendation, you would make the recommendation back, and it would then end up in John's letter coming back from that as an action memo from this group, that you would like the developer to look at. There's 9 30-inch trees. Is there any reason why, and start out with, is there any reason why all 9 30-inch trees can't be protected? And if there is a reason why, then they'll need to give that back to the board before they make a decision. But you've done your job
Mhm.
of bringing the attention to the
Right.
board of what your concern is in the process.
Just remember, we're not at the 30 yet, just so you know that.
That's
So
fine.
we don't have a heritage status on that.
Exactly. So
Right.
that was my, that was my other, well, that's why it said 30 plus on the plan. So I don't know if they are 36 or 30.
That's correct. And
Technically by law, the applicant is governed by this curve. So once they file an application, that date
Sure.
is important, that establishes what ordinances they must follow.
I understand. But,
And
I will make them, they have to put those DBHs on the plan,
okay,
part of our thing. So, and I saw when I glanced at it the other day that they don't have that everywhere. So they're going to have to go back and facilitate that, unfortunately.
okay. All right. Well, that was just, I mean, I just saw the 30 plus. So, and I know that, I know they're operating under the current ordinance. So, all right. Yeah. All right. That sounds good. Sorry. What were you going to say, Steve?
No, I was just gonna say, look. You can always ask,
Mhm.
you know, there are some things we can demand,
Mhm.
but there's some things that we can just, we
Right.
just have to ask. Ask. And, you know, we won't make it a contingent of it being approved. We can't do that by law.
Sure.
We get in trouble with some of those things, but we can ask. And when they, you know, typically a developer will look and say, yes, I can, or no, I can't. And, you know, John and myself and the developer for BPG, we walked the whole project to make sure what trees could we figure out how to save
Mhm.
along Westchester Pike, and we can do the same thing here if we need to do this. All
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Thanks.
okay.
Does anybody else have any questions about the proposed plan? Did anybody else look at it?
Looking at it right now.
Page 23.
Yeah, I think it's L101.
Do you want to look at?
Hard to see.
Do you have
on
any
the phone.
questions? You're good?
No, I'm just.
Okay.
No, no.
Okay. So we good to move on to the next. So we don't have to do any of this. We're just going to wait on you
Yeah.
and then, all right, cool. All right, excellent. All righty. Okay, so
Whole business.
old business. Sorry, people out there. All right. So 2022 goals. So we had tabled this to this meeting. I think what we talked about was the need to do our Tree City USA requirements. So that's the Arbor Day. We got that. Outreach and education, which we sort of, we have that. Is John Rice and Tom are going to work on that. And we had talked about a tree inventory. Starting that and maybe starting with one park or something along those lines in order to at least get started on that. Was that right? We had talked-
I mean, that's.
It's this weekend.
This Saturday night.
Next meeting.
Okay. Okay. Okay, that sounds good. So we'll keep that short. I mean, we could do just what we could do here, the township building, right? Okay, excellent. So that'll be the first one. Check. All right. All right, and then, I mean, I think that's, and then plus some of the plantings that we have. So we'll have a couple of events to help with the plantings. Right?
We are gonna do that one.
What else? Well, we got other ones.
Well, I don't necessarily personally think you need to take on a ton more unless you just
That's
want
what I
to.
was thinking.
So, but what I would like you to do is
Small steps.
refine a couple of the things that you've said here.
Okay,
Okay, and let me explain what I'm looking for and
Sure.
what I'm hoping. The idea that I want to do is I want to take all the goals from all of the different committees back to the board, make sure the board is understanding what everybody's doing, and if there's any concerns that the board has before you get started in your process, that the board can express that to you. In it, just so that we have that taken care of. So let's just take, for example, that we want to maintain our tree city thing. So yes, that's the goal. But specifically, one of the things that you're really trying to do that is have that one of, the Arbor Day event.
right.
And so I would state that we're gonna do the Arbor Day event with a resolution or proclamation supporting Arbor Day. And so that's the goal, and you're gonna do that by the end of April. Okay, so a couple things is, so what we've done now is we know what it is we're trying to accomplish, and we know by when we want to get it accomplished. Is it measurable? It is measurable. Is it achievable?
Achievable. It's
It is
smart.
achievable. Yeah, it's a smart goal, exactly. And so when we talk about the education pieces,
Mhm.
you want to have a quarter-page education piece in the next 4 newsletters. You want to potentially submit at least one a month
Social media.
social media piece.
Posting.
You want to, that, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You want to create what's required of the resident to be like the cheat sheet for the ordinance.
Mhm.
And I forget, there was one other thing you had talked about, but I would list those and when you would have those done by. If, obviously, one, you don't need to list when you'd have the one social media a month done, that is that goal, right? Every month you're going to have a social media piece. But the 4 things, but if you want to have this sheet that you're going to hand out, I think you want to have it ready to hand out by
By
the
the end of
Arbor
the
Day.
month.
And so,
April.
yeah, so that would make sense there. When you look at doing the tree inventory, I would pick a property potentially, here, take the township building for this year. Because if you did that, if you did this and our Gable Park, you have across the street, there's 136 or something like that were planted last year alone. So, it could be a pretty involved process going through and getting everything and getting and it would be a good place to start. Because if you had 130 new trees that were planted in addition to what's already here, it's a great way to start.
Okay.
And if you came up with something that we needed to take advantage of with our tree nursery that we have now to replace something that's here, it makes sense, right? We can take care of what's right in front of us. Then finally, and if you think you're going to have a planning event, what are you going to have? 2 planning events that you're aiming for this year, whatever that is, and between now and the end of the year, if that makes sense. That's what I would look for, that I would be able to present back to the board, if that makes, where we're headed.
All right. Can we just say ditto what Steve just said? We just say that.
Just make sure somebody wrote it all down, because I didn't write it all down.
I kind of did.
But it was on
So-
we could probably pull it from the recording and make those up.
It's okay.
They're all complicated.
Actually, I kind of jotted it down so a little bit, so,
I got a few. Well, 2 of them.
yeah, all right. All right, so I'll take a stab. All right, so, I'll make a motion for the 2022 Shade Tree Commission goals are as follows. To maintain our tree city designation by having a proclamation supporting Arbor Day also supporting Pico's planning effort and doing a tree planting event on an outreach event on April 29th. In association with that, we plan to develop outreach materials and create a cheat sheet of the ordinance to hand out to residents at that, at the April 29th event, Arbor Day. In addition, acknowledging that we need to provide more information to residents and the professional community involved with removing trees, that we will be putting a half-page story in the various newsletters to speak to the goals of the Shade Tree Commission and outline the high points of the ordinance and what people need to know. And we will commit to at least once a month provide a social media posting on what we have been doing and also just as general education to the people of Newtown Square or Newtown Township rather. And we will begin meeting our requirements to do the tree inventory as per the ordinance. We're going to begin with the Township building and inventorying Gable Park. And we hope to do that by the end, or our goal is to complete that by the end of the year. And we also plan to assist with planting events this year. I don't know, 2, does that sound reasonable? At a minimum of 2, including the one at Arbor Day. And if need be, if Public Works needs our help with other plantings for those trees that are in the nursery, we will be happy to assist with that, and we will be doing that throughout the year. I think that's kind of it. So Arbor Day, outreach, tree inventory, and helping with plantings are our main goals. Okay, that was really wordy. Did I miss anything?
Come up with that.
Truncated?
Truncated.
Sounds good to me.
And we know what you want. I think we can get them down to about one sentence or maybe a little longer.
I could even probably do that if you wanted me to write it out.
But we'll do that, but I know what you want.
Okay.
As long as you all agree that's what you want.
Yeah, all right. So, but do we need to vote on that, right?
I think so.
All right, so who, do I have a, all right, second? All right, get writing. All right. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all right, the motion passes. Okay. Done. All right, so I'm so sorry for that being really wordy, but it was a lot of stuff.
Right here.
I know. Discuss possible, well, I think we did that. We did that one. Yep, we did that. Oh, the Westchester Pike project. Rob, did you reach out to Paul?
Talked to him.
Did you?
It was still on the ground.
I know. Okay, all right.
And
So,
I was gonna do it like.
okay,
at the
Can you-
start of everything.
okay, can you maybe reach out to him and
I
set
will.
a date?
I
So
will.
maybe for you and John Hosbach to
Yeah,
go.
he texted.
Okay, all right, because he's been asking
I'm
and,
sure
and
he
waiting
has.
and waiting patiently.
I'm sure he has.
He's been great. No, he's been very patient. Okay. So, all right, so,
Madam Chair, real quick.
yes,
if you can reach out,
yes.
let them know. Be there.
Sure. Be happy to. Okay, great. All right. 9.5, discussion and possible action regarding the use of trees in public works, tree nursery, and as street trees and or private property.
I think this goes back. I think this goes back to the issue that last year we, I believe, purchased 10 trees, of which 4 or 2 were spoken for to be planted on private property as shade tree. Well, 1 was not, and so we paid the extra money for that one because the person wanted it in their backyard. The ones that we bought on speculation, I'm going to call it, we bought all to be shade trees. And so I think the question, and Rob, I think you were the one that actually brought it up, would be.
Yeah, I had a couple customers.
Yeah, we have some customers, we know some people in the township that are looking for some of these trees. Obviously, we want to, if we're going to take them out of the nursery, which we're okay with, are you all in agreement that they can come out of the nursery, be used for that purpose, sold for the price that we purchased them for? Is that okay? Do you, going back to my suggestion, do you want to say, if you're doing it, you get a gator bag and, we charge a little bit more? I don't know that it needs to be, obviously, if we have a landscaper that's going to be helping to get it planted and take care of, that's a little different than just the average homeowner planting it themselves and doing that. All of them do require tree tender certification to be put in. That's the piece of that. And how are we verifying that? So that's I think what George was looking for. I don't know if he said anything else to you, John, on that.
So would the application that you're working on suffice for what we're talking here, or would that be even necessary? What are your thoughts?
Probably.
Okay. Okay. Sure. Okay. I think that's reasonable. Do we need a motion on that?
Does he know, the day I talked to George?
Oh, yeah.
It was raining the day I talked to him. He's like, I have to get back there, but.
Well, let me just say, they've been out there the last 2 days and they have done a beautiful job. I mean, they've gone back through the whole nursery.
Oh, so since I talked to him.
Oh, yesterday and today, they've been out there. They've gone through, when he said there's 30 trees out there, he knows there's 30 trees. He's counted them.
Right.
He knows which ones they are. And so I think we're in good shape. They've all been pulled and re-put in so that they wouldn't take hold in the ground and so that they would stay bare root trees. And so, they're doing all that they're supposed to do. We had the gentleman over from Marple who spends a lot of time on the bare root pieces and how to maintain that and how to run this tree nursery and stay certified with the state. And he told us what to do. And I think, John, you've been out there as well. So, we're doing all the right things really, I was looking at it, it looks beautiful. And so it's like, I got all excited. I thought they actually are all in now nice rows and makes me want to get out there and go enjoy them. So it's a great thing. And we're preparing for that 225 trees. I mean, there's going to be a lot of trees, but yeah, before you do that. Because I think there's a couple that he has that are going to stay on township property, but I think that there's quite a few that can go as shade street trees.
Okay.
With that.
These are right over here.
Yeah, right over here. And any day that you want to come look at it, I mean, we have people here Monday through Friday.
Yeah, I'll
That's
go look at it.
awesome. All right, so we'll make a motion to approve Public Works use of street trees or to sell trees to residents for street trees on private property. Is that right? Does that sound like a decent motion? Okay, all right. Do I have a, all right, I got a
And,
first.
and I'm just gonna say, if you want to require the gator bag, we need to know that.
Oh, yeah,
And I just would want you to say we're selling it at cost.
Okay.
Because we want to make sure we cover the cost that we've already invested.
okay, that
in
would be
this.
great. Yeah, and so I'm amending the motion to include that also that we would sell gator bags at cost for, to the residents
And it would also be
Tree.
the trees.
and the cost of the tree.
Yeah.
Right,
Which
got a
is
first.
as long as it's in the front.
Excuse me?
As long as it's in the front of the house.
Yeah, it has to meet the qualifications of a street tree. Has to be within the right
Okay.
way.
Okay. All right, and second.
Yeah.
I hate that word. And, all right, so all in favor?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Rob,
Who's the
you
second?
good?
Rob, second. I was
Okay,
first.
all right, there we go. Okay, I didn't hear you. All right, cool. Okay, we're almost done. Okay. All right, so that's it on old business. All right, so do we have commission comment? So that us commenting on something?
Yeah, if you want to comment, talk about anything that's kind of not been kind of already
Okay.
talked about, or just make sure that we, like if there's, I think there is items for next agenda is next on your
Right,
agenda. If there was something that you want to, a lot of times that's where that comes in.
okay.
I mean, I have something.
What?
They, John knows too, the pair, they. The Barberry. So they find you now that have Barberry or
Okay.
Any pair?
any pair.
Really?
Anything that's in the tolerance.
Yeah. I know about Barbary.
You didn't get the, and Barberry.
Barberry.
Barberry's
Is
right. Yeah,
is that what it
Which one
said?
Barbary? Is it
it's
invasive?
invasive, it gets out, yeah.
Really? I've never seen it. Really?
Agriculture
Yes,
does.
I think that's it.
I've never seen it escape.
Yes.
It runs.
Okay. So
And
we
the little
don't have
seeds get on the
those,
side of the embankments and stuff.
we don't have those on our tree list, do we?
No,
No, we shouldn't,
Okay,
because like,
it should be on the not to.
not to
Not-
plant.
not to plant.
Well,
but
but
I'm
we-
just saying, but they're like actually banned.
Okay,
Well, not as of yet, I think as of.
Yeah, your inventories have to be
23 or
depleted.
something, or
Right.
24,
gotcha.
You know, the
Okay.
nurseries have to get it out of their nurseries.
Okay.
They're allowed to sell what's in stock.
Interesting.
You're supposed to be not allowed to plant them, but they have to get rid of their stuff.
You can't plant it, but you can go buy it. Is that what the deal
It's
is?
like you don't plant boxwood anymore.
What's wrong with
You can buy 'em,
boxwood?
but you
What's wrong
shouldn't
with
plant
that?
'em.
Why?
Why?
We plant them?
Why? They die.
No, they get
Why
boxwood
not?
blade.
If you don't take care of them.
Boxwood blade.
But
They
All right.
they're beautiful ones.
Really?
Okay,
All
right.
They get boxwood blade.
all right, come on, people, we're almost done here. All right, so what do we have for items for next agenda?
We just did, yeah.
No, we need items for next agenda.
Barbary.
I mean, if you have something. I just dropped my mic. If you have something that I mean, we can always take items for the next agenda up until the Wednesday before
Right,
the meeting. So that's not, well, I say the Wednesday, it's Wednesday, the week before. But we can always do that. We can
Okay.
continue to do that. But if you knew there was something from here, and I think the thing that I'm hearing that one is that you probably will do a further review of Stony Knoll.
okay,
We'll keep that on the agenda.
The walk
And
around,
then,
right?
huh?
The walk around in the park. Is that a
Yes.
business, or is that like?
Yeah, we'll put that as a business so people know you're doing that.
Yeah.
6 Farrier is still on the list.
Yeah, we'll, with the ones that are open items, we'll keep on there. But if there was
Okay.
something else that you wanted to cover, I didn't hear anything new come up tonight, other than,
Well, I think maybe review of maybe some of the outreach
How about
materials.
Yeah.
super old business? Whatever happened to Chestnut Street? The tree violation or something? Was it Chestnut Street? Like way back when? Like.
you're taxing my memory.
The end of the road and then people made a complaint, they were cutting trees or something.
Yeah, I think we determined again that the way the ordinance is written, we're limited in what we could do on that one. I think that's what it was.
Well, it'll be
It's-
over.
I think they were
But we
mostly
can
asking.
do it just a report out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know there was another project that was mostly ash that when we went in and we looked at it, we said, actually, they should be taking these down.
Okay.
All right.
So what I have for the next agenda is that, because we're really going to want to spend most of our time outside working inventorying. So let's just have the further review of Stony Knoll, if there's anything there as a placeholder. If we can get maybe an update on the ordinance review, that would be great.
And I'm sure Seldon's.
Hmm?
also-
Oh, yeah. And Paul, yeah.
Okay.
And so that would be the Route 3 proposal.
Yeah.
And then review of any of the outreach materials that hadn't already gone out. So I think that'll keep us busy. But this is.
And I might
helpful.
just put final, Steve, do you know, is there a resolution that came with the Arbor Day? Okay, if you're comfortable with that, we'll do that and put that together. You meet. You meet on the 14th. The Board of Supervisors doesn't meet again until the 25th. So I think we would want to go ahead and do the resolution. We could do it on the 25th if you want to review it before we do it. If you don't, we could put it on the meeting of the 11th,
Mhm.
just to get people knowing about it. And if you kind of have a write-up that you want to put together for us, I'll make sure it's before the board on the 11th as well. Like we'll do the resolution, and then maybe even one of you would want to come to that meeting and just do a 3-minute, here's what we're doing on Arbor Day, just to kind of get some excitement built
Okay.
around it.
Mhm.
We could bring in one of the bare root trees and have it sitting in the corner over here, Hey, I did it when we did the farmer's market.
Yeah.
George and I, we put a bare root tree, and we didn't take a bare root tree. I think we took a bulb tree that he had, and we took it and set it right out there. So we had a tree. I mean, we've done
That's
those kind of things to bring attention
Okay,
to what's going on.
all right,
So,
that's great. So that would be on the 11th.
yep.
And then, so while you're working on the outreach stuff, would you want to come up with that little blurb for the
Yeah.
Board of Supervisor meeting on what we're doing on Arbor Day?
Yep.
You want me to show up to the meeting?
So Steve, we have to remember all
You want
these
me to
things
come
to get on the
meeting? Is that what you're
agenda.
saying?
We can both come.
I'm up with blurb.
And if you want to share your blurb, by all means, you can do. it.
Yeah, I think that's what it
All right, the
is.
14th of April, yes, is our next.
So just so you know,
No, that's a Board of
the
Supervisors.
vote that you took on the trees
Yeah,
down below to do that, I'm going to have the board authorize that
okay,
because it is an actual thing with money. I'm
Yeah,
going to
I
have them
gotcha.
authorize that.
Okay.
and We'll have that on the agenda as
All
well
right.
for
All right.
Monday night.
all right, so I see no one in the audience,
Yep.
so
And
we
I've
have no
just-
public, so.
I just checked the emails again, just to make sure
Nothing?
we didn't miss
Okay,
anything.
so I can, okay.
Yep.
I call this meeting adjourned.